Guru channel. Today we are going to discuss another important topic, Salesforce integration. How can we integrate Salesforce with external systems like ERPs or any other system? Because Salesforce is a different system, and if sometimes you have a requirement to get some data from other systems like WordPress or SAP or Oracle ERP. So in that kind of situation, we need to fetch some information from external system to say SAP, Salesforce, or from Salesforce to you have to pass data to external system. So in this case, we need to go. In order to do this one, we need to have a fair idea about Salesforce integration. So, say integration. When it comes to integration, I am talking. So, if you want to connect from one system to other system, so you need to get the data by using API. API means application program interface. So this application program interface usually have two types of application programming interface. One is a SOAP and other one is a REST. So in this difference between SOAP and REST I will explain in another session. So today I am going to talk about more into REST. So I will give one difference. So SOAP and REST using for the same purpose to fetch the information from external system to one system to another system. So SOAP is basically it's a old type of integration API. So here the request and response will be in the form of XML. But whereas in REST, it's a new and many companies nowadays they are preferring REST APIs. So this REST usually request and response in the simple format that is called JSON. So JavaScript object notation. So today we are going to discuss about how to call REST API and fetch data from external system to Salesforce, and we are going to display that data in the Salesforce. So if you see here this simple diagram, here I have a Salesforce system. I am going to invoke a web service that is a REST by using through the internet. So here from Salesforce we are passing request to internet. This from the internet it will go to some other external system, and it will send the response to internet and it will come to response. So REST callouts here if you see the HTTP is referred as a REST. So REST callouts are based on HTTP, that is over internet. So by using some HTTP methods, we are going to fetch data. So the most common methods in HTTP, get. So get means if you want to get any data from the external system without sending any request data, so we will use typically we will use get. So post means if you want to create, suppose if you want to create some employee in another system from Salesforce, you have to use the post method and you need to pass some data. For creating the user, you need to pass the name and some details, right? So that time we will go for the post method. So if you want to delete any data in the external system, so we will use the delete. And if you want to update the data in external system, so you need to use HTTP method put. So along with this, you will have, when you call a HTTP method, so usually along with the response you will get the status code also. So this status codes also you need to remember. If you get the response code as a 200, it's a success. If you get 404, it's a page not found, or 500 means bad request. So like this, based on the response codes also you can able to identify whether your request is successfully fulfilled or not. So these are some brief about REST. So today I am going to call one REST API. So these are fake API actually. These are the some for integration purpose they given. So this is a site called instantwebtools.in. There is a fake REST API. So here they given the documentation. So here there are different kind of HTTP methods. So if you call the first one with using the get, you will get all the airline details. If you post by using endpoint, this endpoint, and if you use the HTTP post, you can create any airline data. So for example, this will give first one will give all the list of airline details, and this you are going to create a new airline detail. And if you want a particular airline, so by you are going to pass ID, and you are going to use a get method. And if you want to delete, you can use the delete. You can use the put to update. So these are the some HTTP methods. For demonstrative purpose, I am going to use the first one. So I'm going to call this endpoint URL with get method, which will going to give all the airline details that I'm going to show in the LWC by using LWC. So these all I'm going to display by calling that API. So we will see how we can call a REST API. So for that one, I created HTML. This is my flight.html. Here I'm calling one JS file. So in this JS file, here one important thing you have to remember. Earlier for getting the data from objects, we are going to use the wire annotation, right? Or you can call imperatively. But if you want to call any REST API, you need to use one method called async await. Why async await, I will explain in some brief. Because so usually if you do any transactions in Salesforce, or if you are familiar with it, some mobile development or web development, so these going to happen in the main thread. But these APIs will take some time, because you are interacting with some other external systems, right? So it will interact with some external system and it will take some time. So you should not block the main UI thread. So you need to use async await. So what will happen, this will going to run in a different thread, and once you get the data, you can going to update in the main thread. So that this is the purpose of async. So what I did, I use async keyword for one of the callback method, connected callback, and await I am going to call one another JS file, that is fetch data helper. So once this is completed, I am going to get the data. So these data I am going to assign to my track variable, that is called flights, which is a array. So once data is came, since I use the annotation at the rate track, my UI going to re-render. So I will go to fetch data helper. So this fetch data helper, what I did, I called fetch. This is a fetch is a method we are going to use to invoke REST API. So here we need to pass certain things. So if you, this is first one is endpoint URL, second one is a method. If you, since we are using get, we are not going to pass any request parameters, and we have to put some headers, that is accept application JS. So once you call this one, you are going to get a response. This is dot then is a promise. Actually, if you, I will explain in a different session what is a promise and how to resolve the promise. So when you call this one, so you are going to get the response. So I am converting this to response.json, because the request and response in the REST APIs will be in the JSON. So I am converting to JSON. So once I got the JSON, so this going to get in my flight.js. Here I'm going to get the data. So that data I'm going to assign to the flights. So this flight is a array. So this I want to render in the HTML. So what I did here, so to make a grid, I took one container, and first I given a div class as a grid, and so this is where I'm going to iterate my array. So if you see here for each, so we have array, right? This is now because I have multiple flight details, so to hold it I have a array. So this for each I am going to pass my array flights. So here the curly braces I am using for binding, and so it will iterate this, the whole block will going to iterate for every flight, that is called for item. So this flight will iterate and it will give flight. So these flight I am going to use to create my card. So here we need to give the key, that is a unique ID, to identify each individual flight. And I am from the flight I am getting ID, logo, and name, country, slogan, established. These are the details I am getting, and I am populating here. So this is how I am invoking REST API, and I am showing in a beautiful grid. Thank you. Next session.